Rahul, you are live. You can
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. Sorry, people. I just missed that. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream of Alexa Community India. Like always, we have a great stream lined up for you today. And before we just get into that, uh, I would just like to tell you about the giveaways that we are going to do today. So, if I can have the page, yeah. So, the giveaway we are doing is divided in two parts. So, the first one is Google form giveaway, where you have the link on your screen. All you need to do is simply, scan the link with your phone or just click on it, and you'll also find it in our chat. So just go there, click on it, and fill up the form. Once you do that, you will become eligible for one of the giveaways, which we'll be announcing at the end of the stream. Okay, I'll just give you guys a minute so that you can, take this, go there, just bookmark it for now, and or just fill it on the side. Also, I would like all of you guys to, like this stream, because it helps us reach a more number of audience. The more people like it, the more, audience we get. So that would be good for the community. And all the links to our social media handles are there on the screen and also in our description. So you can just go there and, find it all. So, I think, yeah, I think we've got, we've given you enough time to, fill the roll up. Let's welcome our guest now. So all of you already know him. We've published, it in our social media handles, so you know him by name. Some of you have also met him in person because he came to India once and spoke, talked to many of the developers in India. And I was also fortunate enough to meet him at that point of time. His name is Greg Bulmash, and he's a technical evangelist at Amazon Alexa. His experiences ranges from emceeing at a major comedy club to running the homepage of one of the most popular sites in the world. He's also done some work like opening up and managing a volunteer organization which provides free education to computer education to children. And he holds a degree in storytelling and multiple certifications in programming. So without any further delay, let's just get Greg on screen.
Hey!
Hey Greg, welcome to the stream.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great considering it's 5:34 a.m. here in the outskirts of Seattle. But, hey.
That's quite early for you. Thanks a lot for taking our time.
Oh, getting up early is good for the blood, right?
Yeah, but not everyone does that.
Well, okay. It's my honor to be here, so it's worth getting up.
Right. Of course. And we are grateful enough, everyone just, I would like you to spam Greg OP in the chat just because he woke up so early and, he's spending time with us, sharing his experiences. And I'm sure all of you will, enjoy this stream. Yeah, Greg, please take it away.
All right. Well, let me... Okay, good. My screen shared. So we're going to talk about faster and more comfortable coding with the Ask Toolkit for VS Code. And that's the Alexa Skills Kit Toolkit for VS Code. This is a plugin that we've developed over time to give you a lot of functionality in debugging locally and doing a number of things locally, which has been really useful. I got started on this journey a few months back when I was working on an Alexa game of my own. And that was before we had put this out. So I've done a number of things. I think I gave, we'll talk about this in a minute, but I gave some links to the organizers, and one of them is a link to my own blog post on setting up the old way of doing it, which we'll talk about also in a minute. So let's move along in the slides. So what is the Ask Toolkit for VS Code? Well, I like to use this handy, easy to remember mnemonic, CETDPD. I entertain myself. It allows you to create, edit, test, debug, preview, and deploy all within Visual Studio Code. So you can create skills, you can edit existing skills, test your skills, debug your skills, preview things, and deploy your skills from within Visual Studio Code. But the question is, why? Why would you want to do that? And honestly, the Alexa Developer Console is a good coding environment. It's capable, but Visual Studio Code is customizable. And it's not just, changing the theme to dark. You can choose your linter, your font. Also, your tools for debugging and storing stuff with the web-based console are all web-based. You have to go through additional steps to get access. But with VS Code, all that stuff is right there in your right in Visual Studio Code. So it's really easily accessible. You can set breakpoints, watches, inspect variables, basically the features you've come to expect from JavaScript debuggers in Visual Studio, Edge, Chrome, etc. I like to say in the console, you make your fix, you save, you deploy, you wait for the deploy to complete, and you test. With local it's early. With local debugging, you only deploy when you're ready to commit and push your code to Lambda. Everything is just save, refresh, test. So you're spending less time working your tools and having more time because your tools are working for you. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do two different segments, and we'll have a time for questions and answers in between them. The first part will be, we'll go through getting this set up and do a first test. And then the second part will be talking about persistence and two ways to use it. And that'll be really useful. Our test harness today is I'll be running everything in a fairly clean install of Ubuntu Linux, which is Ubuntu Linux with the LXDE window manager. And all I've done is installed Node, Python, updated Python, added the ask CLI and run ask configure, and installed Visual Studio Code. And the reason I do this is because any of you have run demos before, sometimes you've got a bunch of stuff installed on your computer. And I found that if I don't do it from a clean demo, I may have things installed that are dependencies that I didn't realize were dependencies. And this makes me see all the dependencies that I have to share with other people, because otherwise I might leave some out because I had them pre-installed and forgot. So we'll be doing that. And then I'm going to also share this with you. This will be available. These are the node dependencies that we will be using when we're doing this. Most of them are for the Ask SDK. We have the persistence adapter as well, and JS SHA-512, which is a library I use in the local persistence adapter we'll get to. Before we go on, we do need to have some disclaimers. So for these disclaimers, apparently ever since he made an appearance on my Alexa Live video, he's probably been the most requested guest on all my videos. So let me bring in Rex, our disclaimer dinosaur.
These code stunts are performed by a trained professional in a disposable virtual machine. If you choose to try this on your own, we cannot guarantee your code will be safe from dinosaurs. Little known fact, 93% of all code bugs are caused by dinosaurs. We're everywhere. The only reason you don't see us is because ninjas traveled back in time and taught us to be invisible.
Okay, thanks, Rex.
You sure?
Yeah. Let's move on, and let me share my virtual machine screen here. And it's in a lovely, it was running the screensaver. So, that's what I forgot to bring up. I forgot to bring up my notes. Well, now I've got them. So we'll get this started really quick, really easily. We will go to Visual Studio Code. Just bring that up. Make it nice and big. And the first thing you need to do is install the plugin. So we will go and install the... Oh, that's not what we want. We don't want installed. And all I have to do here is type ask, and we've got the Alexa Skills Toolkit right up at the top. We will install this. And we're good. Now we've got our toolkit here. Now, the one thing I'm going to need to do is sign in, and I never like to sign in on live stream. So I will just move this over to another screen here to do my sign in. And yes, it will ask me to open a website to do the sign in. And I can now, actually, I can just do that. Oh, wait. So just a moment. Okay, got it. Everything is signed in. I'll bring this back over. And we're signed in. So one of the things that you can do is you can start up right away. You can open a local skill you're already hosting. You can download and edit a skill that you've got in your existing developer account, or you can create an Alexa hosted skill. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download and edit a skill that I've been sort of going back and forth on as I've been developing this talk. And we'll do that now. And it gets a list of my Alexa hosted skills. And here we go. Hello, India. And it's asking me where I want to download it. I'm going to download it to the desktop, and it'll just create a project folder for it on the desktop. And it's actually faster for it to download. No, I don't want it to periodically run git fetch. You can, just to keep everything up to date. So now I've got it right here. Here's Hello India. We've got our Ask CLI 2.0 format packaging. We've got our Ask resources. We've got our skill package here. We've got our Lambda here, and we've got our .ask file. So two things I'm going to do, which I normally do. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save my workspace. And that just makes sure that I have all the properties set the way I want to. I actually will save it to my desktop because I can double click on it later and just open this workspace, and I will call it Hello India. And we'll take out that, take out the slash, save. Just want to save it there. I'm not going to mess around with it, so we'll call it hello and save it, and it's there. Now, the one thing that I do if I save it inside the directory, you'll see that there's a file hello.code workspace. I will often go into the git ignore and I will add code workspace to it. And I've also added a couple of things that we'll come back to later. And another thing you need to realize when you've downloaded this is just like with any node package that you've downloaded from GitHub or anywhere, you're going to have to run npm install to actually get your packages installed. And as I showed you, these are our dependencies, and we'll run, but we're at the top level here in our terminal. We're at the top level, so we're going to want to go down into our Lambda and run. Oh, that's why. Let's open a new terminal that's actually in our workspace. So we'll go Lambda, and we will go and it'll install all our dependencies for us. So lovely, lovely, lovely. Now in our Lambda, we should have our node modules. I'm not seeing the node modules directory. Let's refresh. There's the node modules directory. There we go. Okay, so we've got our node modules directory in our Lambda. We've got everything that we need. We should be good to go. Now, let's see here in my notes. Stop and save the workspace. CodeWorks is files. All right, so now a couple of things I'll show. I've, basically, well, let's go and look at our lovely skill here. Now in our skill, I've got a couple of things that I've already done for it. I have changed the interaction model and invocation. So the invocation is Hello India Developers. I've added a slot type for, added an intent called favorite color. So we can get your favorite color later on. These are all, but this is basically the hello world with a couple of very minor changes. And our code that we're going to be going from is essentially right here, the basic hello world code. And then we will update it a little bit. So, one of the things about VS Code is when you want to update to the server, you have to actually, commit your changes. And this is another thing you want to, let's bring back our, I lose my mouse sometimes on these big monitors. There's my mouse, and we will bring back our thing here. We can do git status here. And we'll see that we are in master. We really sort of want to be working in dev. So we'll, but if we wanted to upload all these changes to the server, what we would do is we would commit our changes in dev. We would then switch back to the master branch, merge the dev changes in, then we would run the deploy skill. And the deploy skill is going to both upload everything, push everything to your two branches on Git, and it's going to rebuild your model even if you haven't changed anything in your model. So it's a pretty slow process, but if you're doing all of this locally, you're really well set up to make it very fast because you don't have to do all those things. You're just going to save and respond there. So let's get into actually setting up the local debugging. Now, there's two ways that you do this. One, I've given the organizers a couple of links to an older blog by Satwik, our PM on local debugging, with a script to install, and he shows how to do this with ngrok to create your tunnels. And you're basically setting up your own endpoint. Now, the difficulty with that is that you will have to change your endpoint in your skill configuration so that it is working with, it is pointing to that ngrok endpoint. But when you're using the newer debugger, it actually uses a WebSocket and an access token so that you don't have to make that change. So you don't have to change that back and forth. You can keep your you can basically keep everything the way it is, and we can test our skill right now. We get nice little test functionalities here in the toolkit, and we can open our simulator. And I will close this for the moment, and we can go. I messed up. Oh, good. So it's saying, welcome India developers. You can say hello or help. Which would you like to try? So we've opened it up. This is exactly what we've got. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to configure the local debugging. And for that, we need to set up a local debugging configuration. And that's not here in the skills. This is going to be, let's close those. And we'll just go to run. And we add a configuration. Now it's going to say, select an environment. We're going to pick Node.js. And you'll see right now it created a VS Code directory and a launch.json file. And this has got a very basic configuration set up, but we're going to want to add one that's specifically for the Alexa Skills debugger. And since we're using Node.js, we'll pick the top option. So this is going to set this up exactly the way you need it. It's getting everything from the debugger. It's getting everything from the toolkit. Now, one thing that I would point out here is the workspace folder. Now, here where I've just downloaded this workspace, this is fine. But sometimes I will originate my skill on disk before I've even started putting things together there. And my workspace folder may actually contain the entire downloaded folder as a subdirectory, while I have other folders where I've got experiments and collateral and other things that I'm working on in the whole project as part of the workspace as well. So you need to make sure that if your workspace has Hello India as a subdirectory instead of being the top level directory, that you make sure you have like Hello and you have your path correct to your Lambda index.js so that this works. So we fixed it. We've added this. We'll save it. The last thing we need to do here is we want to go to our debugger. And you can see here, this will start debugging. But if you click on this down arrow, you can pick the configuration you want. So I'm going to go with the debug Alexa skill Node.js Hello India. And so that makes it so that whatever I picked will be the one that goes when I hit F5 to start the debugger. Now I can always do this, but let's say I'm here and I'm in our code and I'm in index.js and I want to just update this. So we'll save that. And so you saw in the in our simulator, this was the default. Now, if I run, one thing I like to do here, and I just do this for safety, because otherwise it'll quite often interpret whatever your second thing is to be the hello world. So I quit to end the session with the server. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit F5. And you see right here, we now have a little controller for our debugger. And it shows that it's running. And here's our debug console with output. And it says debugging is only available for invocations from North America region. We are working on getting this out to all the other regions, and it should be to you soon enough that it's worth showing you this. But if you got to get going with this immediately, as I said, I gave you the URL for Satwik's blog post on the Alexa developer blog, and then a blog post on my personal blog for getting the workaround set up. And this sets up a 1 hour session because that's the length of time that the access token is good for. But so now we can, I'll just make this a bit smaller so we can actually see this. And then we go. And so now we got, welcome India developers. This is my debugger demo. You can say hello or help. So now we're actually running from my hard drive instead of from the actual instead of running from the version on the developer console. And I can keep making changes to this. And I'm going to just show you a little something here. About the debugger. We'll actually induce an error. So let's induce an error. And we're going to come here and we're going to add two things. One, we will add a fake string. My text equals. So we'll now add that string to our speak output, but we'll do a little more interesting stuff to it. So plus my text dot kitten dot puppy. And I'm sure most of you can understand what's going to happen here. Now, if I just put in my text.kitten, I would get undefined. So it would say, which would you like to try? And then it would say undefined. But since we're trying to access a property of undefined, we should get an error that we're trying to access a property of undefined. So if we then go to our simulator again, and we'll just quit, just to make sure that we set up that we end our session. So we started clean. And one of the things I love about this simulator that you don't get in the web console is up arrow to repeat commands. Love that. I'm sorry this is also constricted, but to make the text visible, it actually has to be a little zoomed in. So we've got this. Oh, wait. Let me make sure. Yeah, we got that. And we should have an error. Oh, my mistake. Okay, so this is something that I sometimes forget to do. Once you've changed your code, it's only got the last version that you loaded running. So you need to reload your code. It doesn't hot load. So I'll quit again. And that should be fine. And then we will, hello India developers, and let's get all the way down there. Send. Sorry. And you see our response here from Alexa. Sorry, I had trouble. And if we actually come here and scroll up, we'll see the error. And we have error handled, type error, cannot read property puppy of undefined. So now we've got that right there. We did not have to open up a CloudWatch console. We did not have to find the latest CloudWatch log. It's all right here immediately. And we could have set watches, run through the call stack, set breakpoints, all that sort of lovely stuff. So with that, we've got all of our stuff put together here. And I believe, yes. So we've gotten through our kitten puppy error. Let me remove that before we move on, because we don't need to keep the kitten puppy error. And we can go to a Q&A before we move on to the next section. Rahul? I can't hear you, Rahul.
Sorry again, I was on mute. I was just saying, Greg, everyone thoroughly is enjoying your session, and especially when Rex came on, some of the people in the chat just went crazy. They were like, we need a complete session from Rex. So let us know if that is a possibility. And
I don't think my throat could take doing Rex's voice for a whole session.
Right. I can understand, but yeah, some more bits of him in between. That would be great. We have some questions. So the first one is by Karthik, where he says, is there a way to replicate S3 storage offline on local development workflow? He knows that a local persistent adapter exists, but he's curious to hear about the S3 local adapters.
So that's actually the segment we're going to go to after this. Yeah, it's okay. That's something I developed because I'll explain the problems with using S3 when you're working on local development. So we'll actually get into that. We're going to have some fun with it.
Great. I think, Karthik, you can get your answer in detail today. So the next one is by Jesus, where he says, is local debugging available in all locales?
So if you use the script and your own tunneling, the script that is in Satwik's blog post and your own tunneling, and his blog post explains it, plus my blog post gives some tips on that. You can do that in all locales. It's sort of a workaround. This actual thing where it's setting up the that back channel with WebSockets, that is not available in all locales yet, but I'm told that we are working frantically on getting it out, and the estimated, I can't give the estimated date, but the estimated date is close enough in the future that I figured it was worth going into this version, because it's not going to be a super long time before you can use it.
Okay.
But a lot of these features will still be available in the toolkit. It's just sort of that back channel with the debugger. So you can use a lot of these other features. It's just when you want to debug, you'll have to set up a different debugging profile with the run add configuration. You'll need to set one up that works with Satwik's script and your tunneling software, as opposed to just setting one up that works with the built-in debugger in the toolkit.
Great. The last question we have is from Greenova Corp, where they say that can we use this extension to develop smart home skills?
I actually do not know that. I haven't tried developing smart home skills. The thing is, essentially, you can develop anything that you can develop in the developer console with this. So whatever you're going to have to do to connect with things, there may be some hacks that you have to do. I haven't actually tried it, so I can't address the exact hacks that you might have to do, but I believe you can, and it's worth investigating. We can look into it, and I can sort of like get back to everybody.
Sure. So let's now get back to that. All the questions I had. Greg, you can just continue your talk. Thanks.
All righty. So let me bring my notes back up because they are hidden behind everything. So we're going to talk about local persistence. And how many of you know about using memory in your skills? Raise your hands. Okay. How many of you realize that I can't see you and that your hands are raised and you're just sitting there? All right. I love to do that on virtual things. To explain memory and skills, it's sort of simple. Skills are transactional. They're a bit like web pages in that each time an intent is invoked, it's starting without any sort of concept of what happened before or what's going to happen later. And all it gets is an anonymized user ID and some basic information about your device. So if I ask you what your favorite color is, the function that handles the favorite color intent will get that information from a slot value. And then unless my skill has some way to remember it, it's going to just poof, it'll disappear. And so that's where memory comes in with the Alexa Attributes Manager. This is built into the SDK to help you remember things. And it's got 3 types of attributes. It's got request, session, and persistent. And a request attribute is sort of like gives you a super global for the length of the interaction without sort of polluting the global scope. And then that super global can be used in multiple functions. So if you've got interceptors for pre-processing or post-processing, that information is available all throughout those functions. The next thing is the session attributes. Session attributes are remembered by the Alexa service for the length of your session. So your session is from when the customer invokes your skill to when either your skill or the customer explicitly quits and ends the session, or when the session is implicitly ended because of a timeout and a certain amount of time away from any sort of interaction with it. And so with that, I can ask you your favorite color, and then I can bring your favorite color back in a later interaction within the same session. So that's useful, but let's say you need to remember this between sessions. I need to remember your favorite color tomorrow, or 3 days from now, or 3 months from now. This is really especially important, like if you're doing games. I need to remember what your level is. I need to remember what your inventory is, stuff like that, between game sessions. And that's where persistent variables come in. And persistent variables require a persistence adapter. And that's a very interesting concept because we've defined a persistence adapter interface. Let me see. They'll put up the link in the chat. I want to go here. This is my final slide, and I want to just actually load this up and actually pull up this in. I want to pull up the documentation for the attributes manager here real quick, because it's really cool here. We get to our attributes manager. We'll come down here and we have the persistence adapter, and this is the interface. It just has to satisfy 3 methods. get attributes, save attributes, and delete attributes. And so when you're using the persistence adapter, it is essentially doing all the magic behind the scenes. We have two that are officially distributed on NPM, which are our S3 persistence adapter and our DynamoDB persistence adapter. But you can create your own persistence adapter to work with whatever database or storage system you're working with. And I found for myself when I was working on a project that I wanted to have local persistence, because if I'm debugging locally, there are a lot of things that you got to do to set up a DynamoDB persistence adapter or a S3 persistence adapter, especially if you're working with an Alexa hosted skill. Because with an Alexa hosted skill, we give you an S3 bucket included, but you really cannot, you can't access that S3 bucket outside of the console. It's really, really locked down. So you can't actually set up your local skill to work with that S3 bucket. It's very difficult. On the other hand, you can't, I was going to say you can't do local persistence on Lambda, but I was going to make that claim. And so I decided to go, hey, let's see if anything's changed. Can you? And I actually looked it up, and they've added a new feature where you can attach an EBS store, electric block, elastic block store to your Lambda so that all of your running Lambdas can have a shared file system. So technically, you could now do local persistence with a Lambda, but it's definitely something I haven't tried to set up yet. Excuse me, I'm getting a little itch in my throat. So we've got that, and I just wanted to show you this. And once again, I've lost my mouse in this giant multi-screen conglomeration. So what I'm going to show you now is we're going to go to github.com, and we'll go to Alexa Cookbook. So we'll go to the Alexa Cookbook, and here in the Alexa Cookbook, we've got our tools, and we've got a local persistence adapter I've added to the Alexa Cookbook. And this actually talks about how to set it up and all the different things that you'll need. But the main thing that you're going to need, and we'll grab this. Actually, I want to do this in my VM. So let's go back to my VM. We'll open up Firefox. We'll go to github.com/Alexa/Alexa. We got this here, tools, local persistence, local persist class.js. And so I can go to the raw for this, and I can literally just save it and save it to my Lambda. And then we're done with that. So you need this, you need to save it to your Lambda directory, and we'll go back here. I'm going to actually stop local debugging for a minute. And so now we've got local persistence here, and we've got that in our Lambda directory. So we're ready to go with that. Now, because your skill in the console is not configured to be able to do local persistence, and your skill here locally isn't able to do S3 persistence, we need to set this up so that it can do both. So it's like bipersistal. And so I'm just going to grab a bit of code because I don't think you've seen how many typos I make. I don't think you're going to want to watch me make them in any sort of long typing of code. So let me grab this out of my notes and we'll put this in. We need to throw this in right up here at the top. And this is where we're going to load our persistence adapters. Now, if you notice, I've got if process environment skill stage equals dev. So what it does is it's going to look for an environment variable that tells it, okay, I'm in your dev environment. I should use the local persistence adapter versus using the S3 persistence adapter. So, you know, in every one of the operating systems this works on, whether it's Linux, whether it's Mac, whether it's Windows, you can set an environment variable fairly easily. With the Linux, I added it to the bash profile, just, you know, export skill stage equals dev. And I can make sure that I've done that here. No, I'm typing in there. I want to type in there. I can make sure that I've done it here. Boom, I'm echoing the skill stage, the environment variable, and it's dev. So here when it's running on this machine, it will see that and use my local persist class. When it's running anywhere else, it's going to use the S3 persistence adapter. Now, as you can see, when you've got everything set up in an Alexa hosted skill, it will have your S3 persistence bucket as an environment variable as well. And sort of an interesting thing that I recommend, just for your own reference, not for anything else, is when you set up a skill, at some point, just do a console.dir, and then put in process.env. And then look in your CloudWatch logs to see what all those environment variables are that your skill has access to. There's more information than you might realize that's been put there. The one thing I've noticed, though, is that it has actual like AWS credentials in that, but they change every time you run. So yeah, I tried to take out those AWS credentials and try and bop them in here so that I could use S3 from here, but no, didn't work. So the one difference is you'll notice that with setting up my local persistence adapter, you're going to set a path, which is going to tell you the path that you need to put, that it should save your values to. And so that's a directory called pvals. So I want to actually make that directory right now because I was too lazy to put in a function in my persistence adapter to actually make sure that that directory existed, and if it didn't, create it. Also, I don't want my persistence adapter doing unexpected things to your storage, so it's better to have you create that storage directory yourself. So literally for this, we've got this now. Everything's set here, but we now need to actually integrate our persistence adapter the same way we would if it was S3 or otherwise. But we've got up here, and let me bring the console this down. So we've got up here, we're creating a variable persistence adapter, and whatever, pardon me, whatever we do, down here, we'll just use that variable. So we'll head back down towards the bottom, and we will add our persistence adapter. Okay, let me make sure. Oh, I always forget to do that, and I don't think I put it in my notes. So what we need to do is up here, we'll add dot with persistence adapter. And that's all we need to do. But since we're going to start actually doing some things with persistence, let's add in that favorite color intent handler that I showed you in my configuration for the skill earlier. So we'll add that right under hello world. Actually, we'll add it under the launch request. So oops. And there we go. So now we're set up here. And I think this is probably the most common error I make when I'm coding is I forget to add new handlers down here. And then I go to test and the handlers aren't there. But so we've got our persistence adapter, we've got our intent handler. And so what we can do now, and once again, so that I'm not typing out a ton of stuff, let us just grab a big block of code from my notes for our new variations on the request handler, the launch intent, and the favorite color intent handler. So we'll just replace that, and then we can walk through those bits of code. Okay, there we go. So I also, if we ran short, had a little bit to go on with, we could have used the APL tool in here to add some APL. So I had that in there, but we will probably run just about to time. So if we go back here, we have our launch request handler, and now we're actually going to pull in our get persistent attributes function from the attributes manager. And we set some base, some base variables, back color, say, and then if we have a favorite color property in the persisted variables, and this is something we can actually look at local persistence here. It just basically returns a variable with the path set as the constructor and these three methods. And one of the things, let's see here, get attributes. If there's no data, it just returns an empty object. But we'll go back to index.js. So if it's got a property of favorite color, then instead of, you can see how we've constructed this string now. Instead of welcome, it'll say welcome. And if it's their first visit, it'll be empty. It'll just say welcome. If they have the color, then it'll say welcome back. Welcome back, Alexa India developers, to my debugging presentation. And since we are doing this locally, we should be good. Now, we also have, it will, and if you don't have a favorite color, it will ask you what your favorite color is. If you do, then it will do it will mention it. So we've got all this set up. We've got the color intent already set up in our model over on the console. So if we turn on local debugging, and we do our debug console here, yep, So one of the things is that when you do that F5, right, it loads and tries to run your handler script. So if there's a problem in your handler script, it'll break and you'll get that error here in the debug console. And obviously, life's a little easier when you've got that at a smaller text size. But I've got it higher up so you guys can all see the text here. So we got the debug console running. We can go back to our simulator and we'll just quit to make sure for all of our intents and purposes. I'm actually going to make this a little smaller. I hope this is visible for all of you, but I just want to make this a little easier to see what's going on. So now we got it going. We're going to start again. And it says, what is your favorite color? I'll say blue. It says, thanks for letting me know your favorite color is blue. I'll remember it in the future. Now I'm going to say quit just to end this session. If I open up this pvals directory, as you can see, there's now a file in here. And you notice that I had put JS SHA 512 as one of the dependencies way back when. Now, the reason I do that in the local persistence adapter is because Windows has a shorter file name limit than Mac or Linux, and the actual account number that gets sent to you can be pretty long. So I rehashed that account number just to make it shorter, bring it down to a 64 character hash, which makes life easier. And since you're only testing locally with a limited number of users, you're really not going to be having to worry about collisions of those hashes, although that's with 64 characters, it's still unlikely. So if we go and we actually look in that pvals, that file in the pvals folder, you'll see that we're storing fav color blue. Now, this is exactly the way it would be stored in a file that was stored in your S3 bucket if you're using S3. But instead of actually having to go into the S3 console, find the file, download the file, pull the file up in a text editor and look at it, we can just literally go here. It's right here. And if we want to change it, we are able to change it. And so we can say, so now we can say 2 dogs in a trench coat pretending to be a man. And if we go back to our simulator, let me close this. And we've quit. We're out of this session. So we'll start a new session. And so it's pulling right from here. Welcome back. I hope 2 dogs in a trench coat pretending to be a man is still your favorite color. So as you can see, this, when I'm like testing a game and I have to check, I have to go, okay, how is this going to work when my character's at level 2? How's this going to work when my character has 20,000 gold? How's this going to work if my character has a sword in their inventory? How's this going to work if my character has a snowplow in their inventory? I can go in and have all those persisted for the character and just go in and start changing variables to work with various test scenarios very, very quickly. as opposed to going into the S3 console, downloading the file, editing it, uploading it, and then testing again. This is, I just test, save, go. And since this is not actually part of the code, it's being read live, I don't even have to refresh my code here, which I would have to do if I was changing the code. But the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to actually, let's send this all on up to our actual Lambda here. Now, as you remember, when we were looking at the git ignore, you saw the pvals directory. You want to make sure that that's in your git ignore. Otherwise, anything you've got in here will be deployed to your Lambda in Alexa hosted. So let's just stop this. And we are going to go, we're going to go up one level. And we're going to get status. And we are in dev, and we've got we've got our index.js. We got a couple of other things that we need to add. And so we'll get stage. And so now we've got all that. We're going to change to our master branch. And we're going to git merge dev. So we're going to merge in our changes from the dev branch. Now that we've done all these, we can go back to our Alexa skill here, and we can deploy the skill. Now you have to commit your changes to dev, and you have to merge them into master before you deploy them. Would I periodically like it to run git fetch? No. That's because I'm pretty much doing all my code here. Periodically running git fetch is going to pull my changes down from the console if I've been making changes into the console, or somebody else has been adding changes to the repository. But if I now go back to my console, let's see here. We can refresh this. And you can see now my new code is in here, right? And this here, this you don't even need to really worry about, because, hey, it's just saying the declaring persistence adapter is duplicated, but really we're technically only declaring it once, depending on the conditional. And we've got all these things in, and we've got this to let us know, and it is deployed properly. Deployment is successful. So now what I want to do is I would just want to make sure that I haven't left anything in my S3 from previous tests. And so S3 will send you into this bucket and its media folder. You actually have to go up the bucket. And yes, here I have this from a prior test. And so I am going to delete that. And so now we don't have anything saved in S3. Go back to our developer console. We'll open up the test console. And here,
welcome Alexa India developers to my debugging presentation. What is your favorite color?
so we will ask We'll say green.
Thanks for letting me know your favorite color is green. I'll remember it in the future. You can say hello or help. Which would you like to try?
So one of the good things about the web-based test console is that if you want to start a new session, you can just reload the page. You don't have to do the quit and wait for that. So we can go.
Welcome back, Alexa India developers, to my debugging presentation. I hope green is still your favorite color. You can say hello or help. Which would you like to try?
And if we go back to our cloud to our S3 management console, we can actually go here. We've got that. If we reload that, we now have this. And if I were to download it, it would have the same JSON object in it, which would be fave color green. So that's a way you can set it up so that when it's running locally, it's going to use your local persistence and save to your drive. But when it's running up here in the cloud in the Alexa developer, Alexa hosted, it's going to use your S3, and you don't need to switch anything back and forth. You've basically set up your architecture so it will know where it is and use the appropriate persistence adapter. And honestly, I cannot tell you, especially because of all the stuff with working on a game, all the different variables included, all the different test scenarios. Having a local persistence adapter when I'm developing locally saves an amazing amount of time. I mean, I'm not like trying to get into hyperbole and, you know, just be saying things that are greater than what they really are. It really does save a lot of time. So that's local persistence, and we are at over an hour, so we won't get into it. I'll just show you that it exists here. Let me bring up this. The last thing I want to do is I do want to show you that in here you also have some Alexa presentation language tools to create, preview, download, and test on various viewports Alexa presentation language documents so that you can add useful and helpful graphics to your skills. And this gives you a lot of tools to develop those and work with those locally and include them in your skill while you're developing locally. So, and the other thing, replay session for the simulator. So if you see here, it has export. You can save. So let's say you've got a test case that you have to test something that is like 10 interactions deep in your skill. And you don't want to keep typing all those different things because you're probably going to have to test it 5, 10, 15 times. You can run it once, export it, and then use that in the replay session. And it will replay that. So as you then, you know, it's almost like you can create your, it's almost like test-driven development. You can sort of create your ideal interaction and then code until the output is your ideal output. So that's useful as well. So with that done, let's go to our slide of URLs. Where's that? Let's go to our slide of URLs and we can take some more questions.
Hey, thanks, Greg. So we do have a few more questions. The
Sure.
first one is from Asim Manzoor, where he says, does VS Code support Java for developing skills?
VS Code supports Java. I do not know if we have I don't know if the VS Code toolkit for the Ask toolkit for VS Code supports Java. As you may have seen when we were setting up our test configurations, the two built-in test configuration templates were for JavaScript and Python.
Okay.
So you may be able to do it, but you may have to do a little bit of your own magic.
Okay. The next question we have is from Startup Sanathan, where he says, what are the challenges of installing and debugging locally? Like for all the locales, he's asking.
That's
Like the question, yeah.
That's an interesting thing. I really haven't gone into locale management with that. We can look at the documentation, but I think really you're setting up one locale at any one time.
Okay. And are there any challenges of doing this just for any particular locale? Say, for example, English India. Specific challenges in terms of installing the softwares and making the whole process work.
Not that I know of. I would definitely reference the documentation. I've only done it for English US. Sadly, I'm sort of privileged that way. But we can look at right now we can pull up that documentation, and let me just bring this over here, and we can see what it says about locales. But yeah, I don't right now, because it only supports North America. I don't think it actually has docs for locales. So when we actually expand the support beyond North America, that will probably be added. If it isn't, y'all have my social media handles. Hit me up, and I will make sure to get a note to our docs people to add that.
Thank you for that. I think that would be really helpful. So the last question is by Jesus, where he says, how the debugger works when you use APL for audio. Like basically, how does it work with APL for audio responses?
I don't think it works real well with APL for audio responses, because as you noticed, it wasn't doing any audio output with our simulator. What you can do is you can always you can actually use the simulator in the developer console while you are using the debugger in VS Code. So the developer console will give you a mic, it'll give you speakers, so you can listen, and then what you're really looking at is the debugger will give you any errors that you create, and it will run APLA any way that you would run it otherwise. But if you want to hear it, you're going to need to use the web console rather than the console in the simulator in the debugger.
Okay. So I guess these were all the questions that we had. And before we end this, there is move on to the giveaway. I would really like to thank you again, Greg, for taking out time this early and giving us a session on local debugging. This would, I think, really help people, especially the ones who enjoy local development and were not doing this just because they were scared of it, or there was just some hindrance that they were facing. I guess a lot of their questions have been answered today. And if you guys enjoyed this session and would like to get to see more of Greg and possibly Rex too, then do follow him on Twitter. And he's also a regular streamer, and you can watch his streams on Twitch. The handle is @LetMyPeopleCode. I would just ask our members to spam it in the chat as well. So yeah, any closing comment before we go, Greg?
Honestly, I like this because it just saves me a lot of time. And if in a 2-hour programming session, it makes me 20 minutes more productive, that adds up over time. So it's really useful.
Great. Yeah, I guess that's the case for most of the people as well. So I hope it helps everyone, and we save some time and make some cool skills.
Definitely.
Okay, let's move on to the giveaways now. And the first giveaway was uh, for the Google form, and we have chosen two winners randomly for that. Can we have the names on screen, please? So the first winner is Ramakrishna Mehta, and the second one is Rajneet AV. Uh, Congratulations, winners! And to if you would like to claim your in order to claim your prize, all you need to do is just go on to our social media handles and just message us, telling us that you were the winner, and our team will get in contact with you and get you your vouchers. For the next, we have a special announcement for you. We didn't announce this, but we are also giving away prizes for the best question. And here we have three winners. The first one is Greenova, the second one is Jesus, and the third one is Azim Manzoor. So congratulations to all the winners, and I hope you keep asking these questions. And this shows you that asking questions can be beneficial in both the ways. You can also get some cool swags and also get your questions answered. Before we end, I would just like to thank all of you guys who joined in the stream. uh, I hope you enjoyed the stream, and you got to learn the way that I did. um, Please like and comment, comment on the video if you have any questions, like the stream, and subscribe to our channel, because that's the way you'll get to know about the upcoming events that we have. We have this bi-weekly, and after 2 weeks, we'll have another guest for you, just like this time. Okay, that was all from our side. Goodbye and have a good day.